Yeah, and welcome. So thanks for joining again. This is Ben Crosby, and I'm supporting the rollout of STAR this year across all of our elementary campuses, K5, K6, K8. And this is your orientation webinar. So welcome. Okay, I'm going to presentation mode now. Okay, so STAR Enterprise. Here's the agenda for today. So we're going to talk about why STAR, why we're actually rolling it out this year across all of our campuses, as opposed to just K2, as we did last year. We'll talk about STAR and student growth and sort of how that will work. We'll talk about how to get ready for testing, how to run an actual session once you're in it. We'll have an update on schedules, next steps, and then any time for feedback at the end. And again, if you have any questions, feel free just to plug them into the chat, and I'll be pausing throughout to on those as well. Okay, so here's some background. So this year, 2014-15, is effectively a gap year for SGP. Now, why is that? So last year, 2013-14, year, we obviously gave both the CSTs and SBAC. The challenge, though, was that the SBAC didn't give us any data that we can use to actually measure student growth. So there's basically no prior with which we could create any scores for growth this year, 2014-15, which means that 2015-16, next year, is really the first year where we'll be able to use the SBAC to actually calculate student growth over the course of the year. So that basically brought up this question last year where we said, hey, like, what are we going to do about measuring growth in 4th through 8th grade? K3 already had STAR, which we actually piloted last year across all of our K2 classrooms. And then in the upper grades, 9th through 11th, we're actually using ACT Aspire. So 4-8 was sort of this weird, gap year, if you will. So last June, we put out a survey to all 4th through 8th grade teachers, and we basically asked you, like, what do you want to do about this? So basically the first question was, how do you think we should measure student growth next year, this year now? And we also asked, do you think that we should reduce the overall weight of growth within teacher effectiveness pies for 2014-15? We had about 65 people, and here's what they said. So 63% of folks felt like we should adopt some sort of other assessment this year in order to measure student growth. And approximately 60% of folks, if you look at these green shaded pie slices, like we should also reduce the overall weight of student growth this year and increase something else. So increase surveys, increase the weight of observations, maybe do both of those things. So we are going to probably do that and effectively lower the weight of student growth overall for 15 pies. And we also adopted these two other tests, ACT Aspire and STAR, to measure students' growth this year. So why do we choose STAR? Why are we doing this? So the first reason is that it gives us a benchmark for measuring student learning on the new standards. Obviously, our benchmarks last year don't really apply anymore because they're aligned to the California standards. On top of that, obviously, it's this interim measure for student growth for actually creating the SGP scores. And using STAR this year allows us to maintain eligibility for our grant from the federal government. So this is money that we use to fund leadership roles, salary floors, all those things that we've sort of been working on over the last few years. And this means that we sort of maintain access to that funding, which is great. So for this year, STAR will count for your student growth scores for 2014-15. But keep in mind that you can still reach back to 2013-14 if those scores are higher. So as we've done in the past, you will still be able to take the higher of this year or last year when it comes to your overall pie at the end of the year. When we actually create student growth scores using STAR, it's based off a sample of millions of other students nationally that are also using the test. So, STAR has been around forever, I think 12 years now, and there are literally like 15 million tests taken nationally every year. And it's the same growth model that we use for CSTs, and then we'll also use next year, starting with the SBAC test. So I'll pause there for a second. Any questions there? Feel free to just type them into the chat box. And I'm like using my wait time, but it's for like everyone typing. It's sort of weird, But I'm going to go ahead and just to plug those in as we go. Okay, so we actually chose STAR itself as the test for K-8 based off of 3 factors, and these sort of roll up the sort of best features of many other tests that we already know or that we will be using soon. So the first thing is that we get sort of mastery level data against the new standards, similar to the way that we've used benchmarks in the past. It's a reliable way of actually measuring student growth. Again, there are millions of other students nationally that are using this test, and it's been around for a long time. And it's adaptive in a format that's similar to the assessments that our students will be seeing in the spring. I'm going to pause for just a second. I see that we have a question here from Sharon. Will teachers be able to use the SGP from 13-14 if we only administered winter and end of year? Yes, I'm assuming that you're referring to STAR last year, which was given in the winter and end of year, and they will be able to actually use those scores as well. It's a great question. Thank you. Okay, so I want to get back to the slide. So STAR itself has 3 subtests. STAR, oh, sorry, another question. In lieu of CST, SGP from 13-14. So I'm not sure if I understand the question. I'll tell you what, I'm actually just going to unmute it. Sharon, if you want to hop on the line, if everyone else could actually put yourself on mute, that'd be great. That way we won't have an.
Whoa, Ben, you have magical powers.
I know, it's crazy. Yeah, Sharon, go ahead.
So I guess teachers really have 2 SGPs. They have an SGP from the STAR, and they have an SGP from CST last year. Is that correct?
So could you tell me, which teachers you were actually thinking of? What grade level?
3rd through 6th grade CST math, and they have oh, that wasn't an Aspire-wide assessment. Never mind.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was for EPEX only.
Got it.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Any other questions while we actually have the line open from anyone else? All right. So I'm not hearing a lot of feedback, so I think I actually want to try to keep the line open. We had some trouble yesterday with an echo, but if everyone's on mute, I think we're good. So as long as you're not hearing some sort of crazy echo, I will actually keep going. If you do hear an echo, just let me know through the chat box, and I'll mute everyone again. Okay, so back to the slide. All right, so there are 3 tests within STAR. There's STAR Early Literacy, STAR Reading, and STAR Math. STAR Early Lit is really intended for grade K2. It's for sort of aligned to the Common Core as well, about 30 questions per test, and it usually takes 15-20 minutes to actually finish. STAR Reading and STAR Math are built for grades 1st through 12. They're aligned obviously to the new standards in reading and math, 34 questions, and they usually take about 20 minutes, half an hour to actually finish, depending on your sort of grade level and any other factors that may be involved. So that's the outline for sort of who the tests are actually built for. And now I want to move on to sort of what that'll look like at Aspire this year. So the rollout plan this year for STAR is that any student at a K-8 campus, so a K-5, a K-6, a K-8, will take STAR both in the fall and the spring. This fall in the Bay Area and the Valley, that'll be from September 1st through the 26th. And in LA, it'll be from September 8th through the 3rd. And the reason that LA is later is because they started a week after the Bay and the Valley. Every campus will get a class set of iPads or Chromebooks to actually help out with testing. And again, it's about 30 minutes per test. So in Kinder, every student will only take STAR Early Literacy. There's no math test for Kinder. There are like 5 or 6 questions within Early Lit that are focused on early numeracy, but that's the only test that will be taken. Again, it should take about half an hour to actually finish testing per class. In first and second, you will take either STAR Early Lit or STAR Reading and STAR Math. So it should be about an hour total testing, and I'll get into the breakdown of which students should take Early Lit versus Reading in just one moment. And then in grades 3rd through 8th, you'll be taking STAR Reading and STAR Math, and it should be, again, about an hour. So for those of you who teach 1st and 2nd grade, this next slide is for you. For everyone else, this is your chance to tune out for approximately 90 seconds, and after that, we'll actually be back on board with everyone else. But I have something that I want to show to just the 1st and the 2nd grade teachers. So here it is. So we have made this Excel workbook based off of students' early literacy scores from last year that will tell you which tests they should take this fall. So obviously you may be wondering, should my 1st and 2nd grade students take Early Lit or Reading? And here's how you will tell. So the first thing to know is that in order to actually measure growth, students have to take the same test in the fall and again in the spring. So you'll use what we're calling the Early Lit versus Reading tracker to effectively do that. And I'll give you a quick demo for how that'll work right now. So I'm going to email out this spreadsheet to everyone, every K2, every 1st and 2nd grade teacher. And here's how it'll work. So you'll go in and you'll first sort by your school. I'm going to look at Apex. I'm going to choose a teacher. So let's say that I'm Sherry, so I'm going to filter for just my class. And what this will show you is this is your student roster from this year, and then next to it is the score from your students on the early lit test last spring. So this is effectively this is the score that they got in June last year when they took STAR Early Lit, when they were in Kinder or in 1st. Now they're obviously in 1st and 2nd. And then next to that, based off of how they did last spring, it will tell you if they should take Early Literacy or Reading. The cut score on Early Lit is a 675. So you'll notice that any student under 675 should take Early Literacy, and anyone who is above 675 should be taking Reading this year. If you want to try and give both Early Lit and Reading, that's fine. But this is the test that they should definitely take both in the fall and the spring. Now, obviously, if you have new students, they are not going to show up on this list. So any new 1st and 2nd graders, you'll use this rule to actually figure out which test they should take. So it's up here at the very top, and basically the rule is if they're independent, then they should take STAR Reading. If they're not independent at an 8, maybe they're at a 6, maybe they're at a 4, they should take STAR Early Lit. And again, I'll be emailing this out to all K1 teachers so that you have a sense for which tests each student in your class should take. So I'll pause there. Any questions on that? Cool. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so getting ready for testing. So the week before you actually start testing, there are just a few things that you should do to get ready. So the first thing is these actually went out in an email from me previously, but there are some videos on My Aspire that will show you how to do a few things that are fairly important to actually get ready for testing. So these are all on YouTube. They should take about 10 minutes to actually watch, and this will show you how to log in and actually get passwords, how to change any settings within the STAR portal, and they're sort of very helpful for anyone who hasn't actually given STAR before. The second thing is just to check to make sure which tests will be taken by your students, and just make sure that you know the schedule. You want to work with your ed specialists for any students that have IEPs. And you want to print the logins and passwords for your students, the pre-test instructions, and the tips sheet. And I'll be sending these all out by email so that you have them easily accessible. It's always nice to just have a hard copy as well, even though that does kill trees, I know. And the last thing is you'll need to cover any classroom posters that students might use to sort of help them on any of the test questions. So at a minimum, this is word walls, number charts, number lines, and then anything else that you feel like should be covered up. Any questions there? Cool. Okay, so day of. The first thing when you're actually testing on your day, you want to make sure that all your posters are covered. You want to have handy, before you actually start testing, again, student logins and passwords, the pre-test instructions, and the tip sheet. That'll just sort of help you navigating any software issues that you may come into, or if you forget how to pause a test, all of that is on the tip sheet. You want to make sure that your laptops and iPads are ready to go, are set up, and that you have a worksheet or a reading book on every desk, so that students can just move on to that quietly as soon as they finish their test. And you want to log into the Renaissance portal to sort of make sure that you can track which students have actually finished and which haven't, using the test activity report. And I think that's it for day of stuff. Any questions there? Cool, easy group, great. Okay, so starting a test. So for those of you who haven't given a STAR test before, you will either have an iPad or a laptop. If you're on an iPad, there's this little blue app. It's like a sort of compass star thing. You'll just tap that. If you're on a laptop, you'll open up Renaissance Place, which is just the sort of STAR portal. I would note that this is the same place that you log into to actually find passwords or to sort of access any student data after you finish testing. As a student, you just click I'm a student, and then you log in there, and it's basically the same website. Once you're in, you'll be asked to actually choose your test. So you'll enter the login and the password for that student, or you may even have them do it if they're sort of older and can handle it. And then they'll choose their test. So STAR Math, STAR Reading, or STAR Early Lit. And again, if you're on a laptop, it'll look a little bit different, but again, you'll just sort of click, and it'll take you into the right test. Once you have done that, every test has a warm-up activity that every student will see before they test. So this is usually 3 questions long, and it has 2 functions. So the first thing is that it makes sure that the students know how to actually use the software. So it basically trains them to answer questions. And the second thing is that it makes sure that the test content is appropriate for that student. So this is most important with STAR Reading and STAR Early Lit. If a student is unable to answer those first 3 questions correctly on STAR Reading, it'll pause them and won't let them go on to the actual test itself. And that's when you would come over as the teacher and you would say, oh, it looks like you're paused. Is it that they don't know how to actually use the software, or is it that this test is actually too hard for them, and you would restart them on either the same test or on early literacy. So yep, this is just saying that the test will pause. And here's an example of that warm-up activity from STAR Early Literacy. I would just highlight here that there's this little button in the top right-hand corner that every student can tap if they want to have the audio read to them again. And yeah, again, these are all sort of fairly basic questions. They sort of work to just make sure that the students know how to actually take the test. Okay, so once the students actually get into the test, after they've gone beyond the warm-up, you have the ability to go in and pause, restart, or just basically have students actually stop their test. So to do that on an iPad, there'll be this little arrow symbol in the top left-hand corner of the screen. And on a laptop, or if you're in a web browser, it'll be in the top right-hand corner. It says Stop Test, and you'll just go ahead and click there. When you do that, though, it's going to ask you for a password. Now, this is to make sure that students aren't actually just logging out themselves just because they feel like it. So that password is admin, A-D-M-I-N. It's always admin. So just have that memorized because you'll need it to sort of pause, restart, or stop. So when to start, or sorry, here is sort of how you would go about actually doing that. So first, keep in mind that any STAR test is timed. So there's a fixed number of seconds per item that any student can take, and if they haven't answered by that actual time limit, it's going to count that question as wrong. So if a student needs a break, you want to make sure that you've paused their test so that it's not just sort of going through every question like while they're in the bathroom. So once you actually hit that that star symbol or the button that says Stop Test, you'll see a little sort of dialogue that looks like this. It'll say, do you want to resume this test later? To stop it. If you want to pause the test, you'll just hit Resume Later, and that'll basically pause them on whatever question they're on, and they can go have their break. Once they actually come back from their break or the bathroom or whatever, you'll just log back in as that student, choose the same test, and then it'll ask you to enter the monitor password again. So again, this is admin, A-D-M-I-N. You'll hit start, and it'll go back to the same question they were on when they actually paused. So it's good to sort of have in mind that a pause test is only saved for a week. So you can pause a student, have them log out, have a break, whatever it is, even have them come back the next day and resume their test, and they'll go back to the same place. If you wait longer than a week, it's just going to erase that actual test, and they'll have to go back to the beginning. If when you hit pause, or sorry, if when you actually try to log out and you hit Stop Test, that's going to erase the whole test. So that means that they'll have to go back to the very first question once they log back in for that same assessment. And again, the monitor password is admin, A-D-M-I-N. Have that in your brains. Okay, I'll pause again. Any questions so far? Great, let's keep trucking. So pausing versus stopping. When to pause a test. So you want to actually pause a test for a student if there's a bathroom break, if they need a brain break, if they have an IEP and they're having their test sort of chunked into sort of smaller segments, or if they are just taking longer than other students and they need to finish later. You want to use pause. You want to stop the actual test if there's some event that means that wasn't a valid sort of test administration for them. So for example, they get halfway through a test and they become sick or ill. Obviously, like they weren't at their best for sort of this session, and you want to hit stop and have them come back at a later date. If there's some other event that means that the testing session is sort of thrown off, there's a fire alarm, or like anything else, you would also want to hit stop. Obviously, if there's a fire alarm, though, don't worry about your test. Get out of the building. I don't want to push that. And if there's any other sort of major event where you feel like this wasn't the right time for them to actually finish their test. This is important because the first test that's finished by a student within the window is going to count for their SGP. So you want to make sure that that sort of first test that they finish is really like a valid picture of where that student is in terms of their learning. Okay, I'll pause there again. Any questions? Cool. Okay. So available. Oh, sorry. I thought I heard something. No. Maybe just a mouse on the line. No big deal. Okay. So there are a few embedded settings within STAR that you should know about. So the first is extra time. So earlier I mentioned that every test item is timed. Early literacy is 90 seconds per item, and STAR reading and STAR math items are 3 minutes. If you want to double the amount of time that each student gets per question, you can do that by logging into Renaissance Place. There's a video on MyAspire that shows you how to do it, and I'll be sending out a sort of Word document that also walks you through that. So you can go in and basically give every student, or sort of some students, whatever you sort of think is best, effectively twice the amount of time that they would normally get. One note is that this is not available for early literacy. It's only available for STAR math and STAR reading. The other thing that you can do is you can turn on the audio for STAR math. So as it comes, STAR Early Lit is the only test that has audio as sort of just part of the regular test. STAR Reading and STAR Math are silent, effectively. But you as a teacher can go in and turn on the audio for math. So this means that you'd have to have headphones. But if you feel like some students, or even all of your students, would sort of benefit from having that audio, you have the option to actually go in and change that. So this is a setting that's only controlled by the teacher, that is you. I actually don't have the ability to actually make that change. And I would note that neither of these settings will affect scores or growth norms. So in my mind, there's really no reason not to go in and sort of turn both of them on for all of your students. Any questions on those? Great. All right, moving right along. Okay, so scheduling. So I'll be sending out a schedule this week, day by day, with all of your teachers and days sort of scheduled. This is just a sample schedule that you can use to sort of guide testing. If you want to change it around, feel free to do so. Obviously, I don't know about all the events that are going on around campus, so you should definitely move things around as you see fit. As it is, all of the actual schedules that I send are going to be based off of whole class testing. So that means every student sort of testing within the same session at the same time. But if you want to do small groups, or you want to work with some other teachers so that you're doing it half and half, that's fine. You just want to work with the other folks that are around you to make sure that that's going to work out for everyone else too. And the one note on that is that it's best to sort of avoid having students take 2 tests in the same day, just so their brains don't melt. You know what I mean? So that's it on scheduling. And again, I'll be sending those out this week to your school teams. Okay, frequently asked questions. There are a few things that I just want to address that we sort of hear a lot. So the first is, am I able to see copies or samples of the actual test beforehand? Unfortunately, the answer is no. So because it is an adaptive test, every student is going to see a sort of different version of the test each time that they take it. And on top of that, we want to make sure that we're maintaining the reliability of the test. And so as a result, there's sort of no way to look at it beforehand. There are, however, some videos on MyAspire that sort of show you the first 5 questions, so that should give you a sense for the sort of item format. And you can find those by either clicking this link, which I will send out later, or in any of the previous emails that I've sent about STAR as well. Okay, what standards and content will my students see? So all the items are aligned to the new standards, Common Core. And most students are going to start within their grade level in terms of the actual items that they see. Unless, I should say, if you've got some students that are very high or very low, it sort of may be that they end up seeing content that is from higher grade levels or from lower grade levels. It basically all depends on how they're doing on the actual questions that they're seeing. But in every case, the data that you see after the test is going to show you mastery for the actual standards that you teach. And the last question, what is the STAR item format? So, STAR tests are all multiple choice. This is basically a feature of the test that enhances the reliability of it. Renaissance Learning is rolling out some new items next year that they're calling Tech Enhanced, which will be more similar to the SBAC test in terms of the way that kids actually interact with them. But we won't see those until 2015-16. So that's it. Okay, so I think this is actually the last slide. So in review, next steps for you as a teacher, you want to go through the week before prep that we actually went through earlier in the webinar. And you want to log into Renaissance Place and make any changes to the settings that you feel like. So for example, if you want to turn on audio, if you want to turn on the extra time for your students, and you also go here to log in and download any of the passwords for your class as well. What I'll be doing is I'll be sending a sample schedule to your team this week. I'll be letting you know when you'll be getting all of your tech, iPads or laptops. I'll be sending you all of the relevant docs by grade level that you'll need for testing. And I'm also here to help out, throughout the whole process. So email me, call me. I always feel very popular this time of year, so feel free to reach out if there's anything that I can do to help. So that is it. If there are any other questions, feel free to hop on the line to the chat. And I want to say thanks for joining me on a Tuesday.